Alrighty, we are live now on Facebook. Thank you everyone who's tuning in, and I'm excited to continue our conversation from last time here at Storytellers with Jason Park with episode number 2. Today we are deeply honored to have Josh Klemons as our guest. Josh is a digital storyteller, a strategist, and the founder of Reverbal Communication. He helps progressive brands, organizations, and campaigns win the internet. And he's worked over 100 political campaigns and scores of organizations, helping them start, grow, and scale their digital programs. And also, I want to plug that he's the host of Hello Merge Tag, which is a podcast about the intersection of politics and social media. So thank you again for being on the show tonight, Josh. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to chat storytellers in politics. So
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. Similar to last time, folks, I'm going to be having sort of a Q&A style conversation with Josh. The first question I have for you is, let's start off by diving into your time working with a few organizations over the years. I mean, these include Rock the Vote, the Wisconsin Assembly Democratic Campaign Committee, and Caring Across Generations, as well as around 100 political campaigns. And so my question for you is, what did you do for these organizations, and how do these experiences inform your understanding of effective and efficient use of technology in government and politics?
yeah, it's a big question, obviously. So I've been doing this work. I started Reverbal just shy of 10 years ago after working in politics for years. And this was not my first career. I've been working longer than 10 for quite some time, but started about 10 years ago. And I have had the honor of working with over 200 clients in some capacity. Some clients I work with literally for an hour, and some I've been working with for 6 years and counting. Like I have clients that I've literally been like essentially their fractional digital director for years. I'm definitely not a one size fits all sort of like agency slash consultant. But I've gotten to work with some really amazing folks. You mentioned a couple. So of the 200 plus organizations that I've had the privilege of working with, I've worked it depends on how you count it, because a lot of times folks bring me on just to help them get their Facebook ad like disclaimer set up and things like that. But I've run digital for at least 30 Wisconsin State Assembly races, plus another 25 or 30 Wisconsin races beyond that, and then probably another 30 or so races outside of that. Anything from city council and school board all the way up to U.S. Senate. I've been digital director on numerous statewide campaigns, as well as on a whole lot of down ballot races. I can go through those kind of like one at a time if that's helpful. The Wisconsin Assembly Democratic Campaign Committee, it's the ADCC. They're essentially the D-trip of Wisconsin. So they help elect Wisconsin Assembly Democrats. So our lower house. I did a cycle. Technically, I was a consultant, but I essentially ran digital for them throughout the 2018 cycle. Wisconsin, until very recently, has been trapped in a terrible map situation. In 2010, Republicans had one big night. They won everything and immediately redrew the maps to make it impossible for them to ever lose. That was tragically true until 2024, when we finally got fair maps. I am very concerned, and I'm working very hard to ensure this doesn't happen. But on April 1st, Republicans have a chance to flip the Supreme Court back. And if they do that, we will have had a single cycle of fair maps in Wisconsin, and then we will go right back to unfair maps. So I'm working hard to prevent that, as are a whole lot of other people. But if you go check out my TikTok, you'll see I post about it pretty much every day. Like that is what we're talking about in Wisconsin. So with the ADCC, I ran digital for them, and it was amazing. I got to meet a ton of people and do just like a lot of really cool work. And it was a really interesting way to approach politics, because I'd worked a lot of campaigns, but all of a sudden I was thinking about it from a campaign committee side. So it was like a much bigger picture approach to politics than I had already worked a bunch of campaigns, but this was different. So I was doing things like holding office hours and trainings, trying to help make sure that the candidates and their staff knew how to run Facebook ad campaigns on their own, serving as a resource for them. I was helping, create campaigns. Like that was the year that Scott Walker's Foxconn through Donald Trump was coming to town, and we took that head on. That was like a very contentious. For those who don't remember, Foxconn was the largest corporate essentially tax giveaway in American history, and we gave it away in exchange for nothing. I mean, we literally gave them just like a fortune, and they did virtually nothing in Wisconsin. They barely invested anything. So we were involved in that fight. And so with the ADCC, I really got to understand like how to approach things from like a bigger picture than a single campaign. And it's something I very much approach my work with today. Like I'm very much about like anytime I'm working with a campaign, it's always how can we bring in allies? How can we think about this in a bigger picture way? So I think that was a really helpful way. No campaign is in it by themselves. If they are, they're going to lose, right? Like you cannot win a race if you don't have allies. And so with the ADCC, it was very focused on coalition building, which is really exciting. With Rock the Vote, they actually brought me on during the 2022 cycle to help launch the digital side of a relational organizing program, which was really fun. And I had spent a cycle running digital for the Empowerment Project, which was one of the first relational organizing toolkits. So I had a lot of experience with relational organizing on the back end, like the digital side of things. And so, yeah, Rock the Vote actually brought me on to help do that, which was really exciting. And 2022 was a good year. I mean, we had a solid year, and like Rock the Vote played their small role, just like everybody else played their small role in that. So yeah, like I said, when you've worked as many campaigns as I have, like I still learn something on every campaign that I work, which is so gratifying. Like sometimes it's an hour or two, or I'm just helping build a disclaimer or whatnot, but man, I am constantly just getting to work with new folks all the time. And it's a really great benefit of like the way my business is built. Last cycle alone, I probably worked 30 campaigns, all the way from, very small up to US Senate races. And like, I get to bring what I'm learning on the big races to the small races, but also getting to bring what I'm learning on the small races to the big races. And there's like these small races have an intimacy to them that US Senate races struggle with. And there's some really cool ways to bring that in. So, yeah, happy to delve more into any of that. I just said a whole lot of things. I'm happy to talk more about any of it, but, big picture, it's like every time I work with a campaign or an organization, I start with a blank sheet of paper. I figure out what their specific needs are, what their specific strengths are, how we can best move the needle to, as it says behind me, for those watching on video, my sort of shtick is let's win the internet. And I'm very focused on that idea of like, election day matters, but there's 1,000 days before election day, and you can't win the internet if you're only focused on election day. You have to find a way to tell stories that make people feel like they're part of something if you want to get them across the finish line to election day. And that's the biggest thing I've learned over the years working in politics that I take to all my clients, whether they're corporate or nonprofit or whatever, is like, it can't just be about the sale. It can't just be about the vote. It has to be about a movement. It has to be about something bigger. And that's something that I think is applicable to anybody who's trying to connect with other people online.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for laying all that out. And we're going to dive into
sure.
some of that shortly. But since the election is coming up on April 1st, folks, if you're tuning into the live stream, I just dropped into the comment section, the live comment section, the Take Action page for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and the DNC. Please get involved in the Wisconsin Spring.
Please get involved. It's an all hands on deck. This is a national problem. If we lose, we are doing the work. I mean, Wisconsin Democrats and all of us here in Wisconsin are, doing the work. But if we lose, God, heaven forbid, they might not ratify the next election. Like this has national implications. I will also flag for folks listening who don't know Wisconsin politics, which is most folks probably. We are a 50-50 state, truly a 50-50 state. And yet 75% of our congressional delegation are currently Republicans. Like our maps are broken for the congressional district. Fair maps for congressional seats would literally give Democrats in DC in the House almost enough for a majority. Like that, you flip 2 seats in Wisconsin, and suddenly the House is, we're one, depending on who's out, on leave, and obviously folks come and go. Like there's been some tragedies and stuff, but it affects everybody. And that's true in North Carolina, where we saw that we lost enough seats to lose the House. It's true in New York. It's true in Florida. Like a lot of these states, like it matters what happens there. And Wisconsin right now is at threat of losing the Supreme Court. And if that happens, it is very likely that the conservative majority will not ratify future elections. And we know that, we're seeing it happen in North Carolina in real time with their Supreme Court. They do not respect the will of the voters, and it is what it is. So we have to win. We have to, there's no option. Susan Crawford has to win April 1st. And, we can talk about this when we talk about my TikTok, if you want. But a big part of me is a lot of folks say well, what's she doing? What did Hillary do? What did Kamala do? it doesn't matter. What are you doing? What are we doing? Like it's on each and every one of us as activists and as organizers to like make sure that we collectively are winning the race. So that is very much my approach to on the other side of things. Like I work campaign side, but I'm also very active as like just an organizer online, like a digital organizer on TikTok. And it's very much about like this is not about them. This is about us. What are we going to do to win this race together? And if anybody watches my TikTok, they'll see that's the way I approach things.
Absolutely. Folks, Josh and I look forward to seeing you on the phone bank, seeing you on the ground canvas in
Hell yeah.
April 1st, Wisconsin Supreme Court.
April 1st, yeah.
Well, let's switch gears to something that I think is very interesting in terms of a motto that you've put on your LinkedIn page. Your page says, quote, "My motto is simple. You have a story. Let's tell it." You can also mention you help folks to win the internet. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Could you go into some detail for our listeners or viewers here today? What is a general set of rules or principles that you follow to do just that?
Yeah, so I talk about this a lot, but especially with campaigns, it's so easy for candidates to think that they matter. But at the end of the day, they don't matter because nobody cares about the candidate. People care about themselves. And it's so important to help candidates remember they're not the hero of the story. They're the voice of the people. They're not a superhero. They're not wearing a cape. They're holding a megaphone, and they need to be connecting with voters on issues that matter to them. If you are telling people you can fix it, that might work for some Republicans. It does not work for Democrats. Democrats are not interested in that. We are a movement. We're a big tent. And I've literally had clients like tell me like, I want to show them how I can fix it. It's like, man, that is never going to sit with anybody. Nobody's going to believe that. It's not believable. Like, don't tell us what you did. I mean, sure, if you have a big victory, share it. But at the end of the day, it's not about what you did. It's about what we together can do. And that is very much like, again, going back to that idea with like the Assembly Democratic Campaign Committee, it's about coalition building. The coalition's not just other organizations, it's also the voters. Like if they don't feel empowered to be part of your campaign, they will probably still vote, assuming they're like good Democrats. They might donate, but they're not going to be out there asking their friends to join you and knocking doors. Like if you want people to get involved, they have to feel like they're a part of something. And so many campaigns, especially I work a ton of down ballot races, it's so easy to kind of forget that side of things, to be like, oh, I'm running for office. I'm the hero of the story. You might be the hero of your own story, but you're not the hero of their story. And you need to make the story resonate with them. So I am very focused on helping candidates find ways to tell their story that doesn't center it on them, but rather centers it on the electorate. And that's a hard thing to do, but like an important thing to do.
Absolutely.
So that's the primary principle. I mean, there's others, but that's like the biggest one, no question about it.
I'm sure we could come up with, plenty of case studies, both good and bad, in terms of campaigns and candidates that did just that, and
exactly,
unfortunately did not do right.
Exactly.
So,
yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for answering that question and doing so in a very in a very good manner. And really, my final question for you this evening is, as you mentioned, you have a TikTok channel and you're very active on that, and so I would love to have you share a little bit more about your activity on TikTok, as well as your podcast, Hello Merge Tag. Could you share a little bit about these and explain how they tie into that general set of rules or principles that you just described for your previous response?
Yeah, sure. So I got a TikTok channel before it was a household name. Like I'm a digital strategist. There's a new platform. I'm going to get on it. But, I was just posting silly little things. I wasn't taking it seriously. And then during the pandemic, I was sitting outside of a restaurant waiting for a curbside pickup. And I was really frustrated about Wisconsin gerrymandering. And I did a very short post. The whole thing was, I think, 20 seconds long, just talking about how bad Wisconsin maps were. And the post got 12,000 views. And a ton of the people in the post, I had double-digit followers at the time, like less than 100 followers. And I did this post, 20 seconds, 30 seconds long, talking about Wisconsin maps. 12,000 views. And that was not the interesting part. The interesting part was how many people in the comments were in Wisconsin. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then a few days later, I had a similar situation where I posted something about a Ron Johnson Mandela Barnes debate. So this was like October 2022. And that post reached 40,000 people. Again, I still had maybe triple digit followers at that time. And that was the moment where I realized, oh, TikTok has juice. And this was not just that I reached 40,000 people, because that's a vanity metric if you're just like getting numbers. But the comments were wild. And the amount of people that were in Wisconsin was actually overwhelming to me, because I had considered at that time TikTok to be a global platform, which it obviously is. but it is absolutely a local platform. And if you are not thinking about TikTok locally, you are missing a huge opportunity to talk to people. There are times we'll have a special election in Wisconsin. I will hold my phone up to a map on my computer, like on Ballotpedia, showing the district, and I'll tag in and mention some of the cities. And I will have people in the comments saying, "Oh my gosh, I live here. I didn't know there was an election tomorrow. My parents live there. I'm telling them now." I have had hundreds of people in the comments and DMs tell me that they're voting directly because of a TikTok post I did, which is wild because I've spent most of my career helping campaigns tell people to do that. And all of a sudden I found this way where I became this accidental activist on TikTok. And so after I got those 40,000, hits on that Ron Johnson piece, I essentially turned this into like a thing that I do. And now I post on TikTok on average daily, sometimes 3 times a day. Sometimes I take a weekend off. Like it's not like a rule, but I post pretty much daily. And I've had probably close to like 8 or 9 million impressions in a little over 2 years. And the amount of people that I like, it's all focused on organizing and mobilization around like progressive causes. Like, so it's not just campaigns, it's also issues. And I'm not always telling people to do something. It's like education based, but I am just like taking the stories of the day that are like out there in the world and making sure that they find their way onto TikTok. And the amount of people there who come to me as a source is wild. And again, I always say, like, I'm not running for office. I'm not running like some big organization. I'm nobody. I'm just a guy with a phone. The amount of people that I found who literally, I have so many comments of people telling me I am like their source for like Wisconsin news. Like people say like, why don't I hear about this anyplace else? And I'm like, I don't know. Spread the word. Like it's on all of us. So TikTok has very much become a place for me to like digitally organize. And I, like this plays right into what we were talking about with the campaigns that I work on. It's like, you can watch 100 of my TikToks and you'll never see one where I'm talking about myself. Like it's not about me. It's about us as a community. Like we together have an opportunity to do something great. And you know what? Since I launched that TikTok, I have been focused on a ton. Like we've obviously had some hard losses in Wisconsin. We've had a lot of great wins, and like we're all in it together. And like people literally look to me like the day after a loss, like it's my job to post about it and like let people know how I'm feeling. It's like a very weird feeling to know that like I'm processing grief that Donald Trump won the 2024 election, but I still have to get on TikTok and talk about it. But like literally people are like looking to me for it. And it's very interesting. Hello Merge Tag, my podcast. I actually have 2 podcasts because I'm a huge digital nerd. So my second podcast is just me, and it's called Step Up Your Social. All episodes are short, 10 minutes or less. Quick actionable tips to take your digital marketing to the next level. So if folks are just looking for like quick, like going for a short walk, you can listen to an episode in, 10 minutes or less. But the one that I'm really focused on these days is called Hello Merge Tag, where social media and politics intersect. And I've hosted Congress people. I've hosted organizer memes. I've hosted Dan Pfeiffer from Pod Save America. I've hosted a bunch of elected officials from Wisconsin and beyond. Just this morning, today's Tuesday, chatted with Evan Sutton about the Making Tesla Toxic campaign that he's like very active in. I've had some really great conversations with folks, and for that, it's very different. Like with TikTok, I'm talking to the people. With Hello Merge Tag, I'm more like talking to our peers. Obviously, everybody's invited. It's a very open, free, anybody can tune in, but it's much nerdier. It's like, we're not talking big picture politics. We're talking like nitty gritty of like what's going on with digital organizing, what's going on with like progressive digital work. So like I hosted some of the organizers from the Act Blue letter to talk about like what was going on with the letter. I had Congressman Mark Pecan come on to talk about his like feud with AIPAC when he was very publicly like feuding with AIPAC when they were funding, primary challengers to Democrats. So it's really focused on like how politics and digital intersect. I started that podcast because I wanted those conversations to happen and I just wasn't seeing them anywhere. So I started them, and it's a ton of work and it's been a ball. I've gotten to meet a ton of cool people. I've gotten to learn a ton of stuff. So it's just been really fun. I started that maybe, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so. And you can check out all episodes wherever you stream podcasts or at hellomergetag.com. But yeah, I've been having a ball with that. So happy to answer any follow-up questions, but that's kind of big picture. 2 very different things that I do. But both of them are definitely, like both of them are about moving the progressive movement forward, just in very different ways.
Thank you for that broad overview. And folks, I did this myself. If you look up Josh Klemons' last name, Klemons on TikTok or LinkedIn, it's pretty easy to find Josh. So
Yeah.
go
And
ahead.
if you go to my website, Josh Klemons, so K Lemons, like you said, joshklemons.com/content. I have both podcasts listed there. I have a newsletter that I do called Free Digital Tools, where every 2 weeks I send out 2 free digital tools. That's it. I've been doing it for years. I'm a huge nerd for free digital tools. I started collecting them and now I'm sharing them with people. So you can find that there. You can find all my social links. I have a ton of other free tools and things you can download, like, free resources on the site, and my blog. I blog regularly, so yeah, I'm a huge nerd for content. So if anybody's looking to connect with me or find more resources, find me. I'm very active on a lot of social platforms. You can find all of my stuff at joshklemons.com/content.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Folks, obviously make sure to check out Josh's podcast and TikTok channel, and also Google search Storytellers in Politics with Jason Parr.